I took a pregnancy test at 6 in the morning, standing on the cold bathroom tiles in my socks. I had not told my husband I was taking it. I had not told anyone. I had bought it the night before, at a pharmacy 3 towns over, because something in me, some quiet, terrified, already knowing part of me, did not want anyone to see me buy it locally. Did not want to run into someone I knew at the register. Did not want to make it real before I had to. The result came up in 48 seconds. Positive. I sat down, on the edge of the bathtub. I did not cry. I did not panic. I just sat there in my socks on the cold edge of the tub and stared at that test and felt something move through me that I cannot describe as any single feeling because it was too many things stacked on top of each other all at once. Shock was in there. Confusion was underneath it. And underneath the confusion, something quieter, something that had been sitting in the back of my mind for 3 weeks, asking a question I had not allowed myself to fully form yet. Because here is the thing. I should not be pregnant. I have been on the same birth control pill for 3 years. Same prescription, same pharmacy, same alarm on my phone every morning at 7:30 that I have not once ignored. I am the kind of person who sets 3 backup alarms and takes the pill before I even get out of bed. I do not forget. I do not skip. I have been doing this so consistently and for so long that it is as automatic as breathing. So how? That is the question. How? My name is Torres. I am 28 years old. I have been married to my husband Nate for 3 years. And I am sitting on the edge of my bathtub at 6 in the morning with a positive pregnancy test in my hand and a question that I am about to spend the next 72 hours answering. And when I answer it, when I finally understand how everything is going to change, every single thing. If you are new here, please hit subscribe and give this video a like before we go any further. It really does help more than you know. Okay, let me take you back. Because this story does not start in a bathroom. It starts 8 months ago, in my mother-in-law's house, on a Sunday afternoon when I did something so ordinary and so automatic that I did not think about it for even 1 second. And that 1 second is going to cost me everything. Let me tell you about Diane Kowalski, my mother-in-law, 61 years old, retired school administrator. Lives 12 minutes from our house, which I know because Nate told me on our second date. And even then, even before I knew anything, some part of me filed that number away. 12 minutes, close enough to appear without much warning. And she did. Appear without much warning. That was just a thing that happened in our marriage. Nate would get a text, and then 20 minutes later, Diane would be at the door with a casserole dish and a smile. And I would feel the afternoon shift into something that was no longer ours. Nate did not see anything wrong with this. He grew up with Diane, the way people grow up with weather. You do not question the weather. It is just the condition of your life. His father had left when Nate was 11, just gone one morning. No dramatic fight, no warning anyone could point to. Just a man who decided his life was somewhere else and went there without much explanation. And Diane had raised Nate alone from that morning forward, with a focus and a devotion that had calcified over 20 years into something that looked like love and functioned like a grip. I understood this about her. I had compassion for this about her. But compassion only stretches so far when someone uses your spare key to come into your house while you are at work and reorganizes your kitchen cabinets because she decided the mugs were in the wrong place. Yes, that happened. I came home on a Wednesday to find every mug we owned moved to the cabinet above the coffee machine because Diane felt it was more logical. I stood in my kitchen looking at my reorganized mugs and I thought, okay, this is the person I married into. This is what this is. I moved the mugs back. She moved them back again the following Tuesday when we were both at work. I left them there after that. Pick your battles. That was the thing I kept telling myself. Pick your battles with Diane, because if you fight every small thing, you will spend your entire marriage fighting. And I loved Nate. Genuinely, completely loved him. And I was not going to let his mother's mug opinions become the thing that wore us down. So I picked my battles. And while I was carefully deciding which battles to pick, Diane was doing something in my bathroom that I did not know about. Something that was not a mug. Something that was so much worse than a mug, that even now writing this, my hands are doing a thing they do when I think about it. A kind of tremble that is not quite anger and not quite grief, and is mostly just the physical residue of a betrayal so specific and so intimate that my body still has not fully processed it. I need to tell you about the grandchildren conversation, because it is important. It happened 11 months before I found out. We were at Diane's for Sunday dinner, just the three of us, pot roast, and those green beans she made with the almonds that Nate loved. And Diane put down her fork and looked at us both and said so. When are you two going to start a family? Not for the first time. She had been asking variations of this question since approximately our 3rd month of marriage. Nate said, "We're not in a rush, Mom. We talked about this." She said, I know. Your cousin just had her second, and I keep thinking about how much I would love." She stopped, smiled, said I just get excited. Ignore me. And then she picked up her fork and changed the subject to something about her neighbour's fence dispute. I watched her do it, that smooth pivot, that practiced retreat, and I thought, she is not dropping this. She is just changing tactics. I was right. I just did not know what the new tactic was going to look like. The key. I have to tell you about the key. Nate gave her a key 2 years before I came into the picture. She had used it during a plumbing emergency burst pipe in winter, and afterward, Nate had never asked for it back because it had felt useful in a crisis, and he was not a person who looked for problems in things that felt useful. I had asked about it once, delicately. I said, "Do you think we should maybe get the key back from your mom, just so we have it?" He said she never just comes in. She always texts first. I said she texted when she moved the mugs. He said the mug thing was one time Meg. I dropped it. Because again, pick your battles. And the key felt like a battle that would cost me more than it was worth. Because if I pushed on the key, I was saying I did not trust Diane, and then Nate would feel like I was attacking his mother, and then we would have the conversation we had been carefully not having for 2 years about where his loyalty lived, when his wife and his mother were pulling in different directions. I did not want that conversation yet, so I left the key alone, and Diane kept it and used it in ways I did not find out about until 11 months later. Here is the thing about birth control pills that I did not know until my doctor told me. Certain prenatal vitamins are manufactured to be almost identical in size and shape to common birth control pills. Not exactly the same, but close enough that if you were taking your pill every morning at 7:15, half asleep and in a hurry, the way I had been doing for 4 years, you would not notice. You would just swallow it and feel protected and make plans for your life based on that protection and have no idea that the protection was gone. That is what Diane knew. That is what she counted on. The dinner where she slipped up was a Saturday in March. Nate's Aunt Carol was visiting from out of town. Carol was the kind of woman who said every thought she had the moment she had it, which made her exhausting at professional events and genuinely invaluable at family dinners because she was the only person in the room who never said anything sideways. We were on dessert. Diane had made her apple cake, the one that takes 3 hours, and that she only made for special occasions, which told me the Aunt Carol visit meant more to Diane than she had let on. Carol was talking about her daughter's new job, and she looked at me and said, "And what about you, Megan? Are you and Nate thinking about kids yet?" I said, "Not quite yet. We're enjoying just the two of us for now." Carol nodded, said, "Good for you. There's no rush. Take your time." And Diane, who was cutting the apple cake at the counter with her back to the table, said, "Well, that might be changing soon." Silence. The kind that happens when something gets said that immediately changes the temperature of the room. Carol said, "Oh, really?" Diane put down the knife. She turned around, and she saw my face. I do not know what was on my face exactly. I know it was not a normal face. I know it was the face of a woman who has just heard something that does not make sense, and whose brain is running very fast trying to find the explanation that is not the explanation currently presenting itself. Diane said, "I just mean you never know. These things happen when the time is right." She smiled, picked the knife back up, went back to cutting the cake. Nate was looking at me. I looked at him. He gave me a small shrug. Like, who knows what she means? I looked back at Diane's back, and I felt something shift. Not dramatically, not a firework going off, just a very quiet click somewhere inside me, like a door closing, or maybe like a door opening. I did not say anything for the rest of that dinner. I ate the apple cake. I talked to Carol about her daughter's job. I laughed at the right moments. And the whole time, underneath all of that one sentence, was running on a loop in my head. That might be changing soon. How would she know that? How would Diane Kowalski know that my plans for children might be changing soon? Unless she knew something. Unless she had done something. I did not confront Diane that night. I have learned, slowly and expensively, that confronting someone before you have the full picture is a gift you give them. It tells them exactly what you know and exactly what you do not. And it gives them time to build a wall around everything you have not found yet. I am not the kind of woman who gives that gift. Not anymore. So I smiled and helped with the dishes and hugged Carol goodbye and drove home with Nate and waited until he was in the shower. Then I went to the bathroom cabinet. I took out my pill case. I looked at the pill for Tuesday. I looked at it for a long time. And then I did something I had never done in 4 years of taking this medication. I went to my laptop and I looked up the exact manufacturer specifications for my pill, the exact shape, the exact color, the exact markings on the tablet. I held my pill next to the screen. My pill had a slightly different marking, barely different, a hair. The kind of difference that does not exist unless the pill is not what it is supposed to be. I put the pill down on the counter. I sat on the bathroom floor, and I let myself think the thing I had been not thinking for the last 3 hours. The next morning, I called my doctor before Nate was awake. I took my entire pill bottle to the appointment. I sat in the chair across from Dr. Reeves, and I put the bottle on the desk between us, and I said, "I need you to test these. I need to know if they are what they are supposed to be." She looked at me. She said, "Megan, are you pregnant?" I said, "I don't know yet. I need to know about the pills first." She said, "Why do you think something is wrong with them?" I said, "Because my mother-in-law has a key to my house, and she has been in it alone multiple times in the last year, and she made a comment at dinner last night that she had no way of knowing unless she had done something to interfere with my medication." Dr. Reeves was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "Give me the bottle." She sent the pills to the lab that morning. She also gave me a pregnancy test. It was positive. I sat in the bathroom of my doctor's office, and I stared at that test, and I thought, so, there it is. There is the answer to how. I did not cry. I was way too deep into what I was feeling to cry. Crying was going to come later. Right now, I was cold and clear and focused in the way that I am when something is serious enough that falling apart is not an option I can afford yet. I pulled out my phone. I texted my sister Jess 2 words. "Call me." She called in 40 seconds. I told her everything in one go, without stopping. When I finished, she was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, "Megan, do not go home yet. Do not go home until we know what those pills are. And do not tell Nate. Not yet." I said, "I know." She said, "Where are you right now?" I said, "Doctor's office parking lot." She said, "Stay there. I'm coming." Jess sat with me in that parking lot for 2 hours. We did not talk the whole time. Sometimes we talked. Sometimes we just sat. She brought me coffee from the place across the street that I liked, and she did not tell me what to feel or what to do. And she did not say everything is going to be okay, because Jess has never been the kind of person who says things she cannot guarantee. At one point she said, "If it comes back the way we think it will, what do you want to do?" I said, "I don't know yet. I need the results first." She said, "Okay." She handed me the coffee. We sat there until I was ready to drive home. The lab results came back in 48 hours. Dr. Reeves called me directly, not the office, her cell phone, which told me, before she said anything, that the results were significant. She said, "Megan, I need to tell you what we found." I said, "Okay, tell me." She said, "The pills in your bottle are not your prescription. They are prenatal vitamins, a standard formulation, no contraceptive properties at all." I sat down on the nearest chair. She said every pill we tested was a vitamin. Not one was your actual medication. I said, "How long?" She said, "I don't know exactly. That depends on when the switch was made. But given that you are currently pregnant, I would estimate at minimum 2 to 3 months." I said my mother-in-law has been in my house alone at least 5 times in the last 6 months. "Dr. Reeves," said Megan, "what was done to you is not a small thing. Replacing someone's contraception without their knowledge or consent is a serious violation. I want you to know that." I said, "I know." She said, "Do you have someone with you?" I said, "My sister." She said, "Good. Stay with her tonight if you can. And Megan, document everything. Every time you know she was in your house. Every text. Every access. Document all of it." I said I already started. I told Nate that same night, not because I was ready, because he deserved to know before I did anything else. Because whatever was about to happen next was going to affect his life as much as mine, and I was not going to move forward without him in the room. I sat him down at the kitchen table. I put my phone on the table between us, with the lab results pulled up. I said, "I need you to read this, and I need you to read all of it before you say anything." He read it. He read it again. He put the phone down. He said, "Megan." I said, "I know." He said, "These are your pills?" I said, "Were my pills." "For at least 2 to 3 months, possibly longer." He said, "And you think?" I said, "Nate. Who has a key to this house?" He went completely white. I mean that literally. The colour left his face so quickly and so completely that I actually reached across the table because I thought for a second he was going to pass out. He said she wouldn't. I said she slipped up at dinner on Saturday. She said that might be changing soon when Carol asked about kids. She had no way of knowing that, unless... He said maybe she just meant... I said, "Nate, look at the results." He looked at them again. Long silence. Then he said, "I'm going to call her." I said, "No." He said, "Megan." I said, "No phone call. We go there, tonight, together, and we do not call ahead." He looked at me for a moment. Then he nodded. He got up and got his keys. Diane answered the door, in her bathrobe. It was 9:30 at night. She was not expecting us. Her face did the thing I had seen it do at the dinner table, that specific rearrangement that happens when someone arrives who you were not prepared for. She said, "Oh." I wasn't expecting. Nate said, "Can we come in, Mom?" Something in his voice made her step back. We went inside. The living room. Same couch I had sat on 100 times. Same lamp in the corner with the slightly crooked shade that she had never fixed. Same photo of Nate at his high school graduation on the bookshelf. I sat down. Nate sat beside me. Diane sat across from us. And before anyone said anything, before Nate could find whatever words he was building toward, I pulled out my phone and put it on the coffee table between us, with the lab results on the screen facing her. I said, "I need you to look at this." She looked at it. She did not pick it up. She did not lean forward. She just looked at it from where she was sitting. And then she looked up at me. And she did not say, "What did I do?" or "I don't understand," or "What is this?" She just looked at me. And in that look was everything. 7 seconds of complete silence. I counted. I said, "The pills in my prescription bottle have been replaced with prenatal vitamins. My doctor confirmed it. The lab confirmed it. And I am pregnant." Nate made a sound beside me that I cannot describe. "Diane," said Megan. I said, "I am not finished." She closed her mouth. I said, "You have a key to this house. You have been in this house alone at least 5 times in the last 6 months. You slipped up at dinner on Saturday when you said that might be changing soon. And right now, You are not asking me what I am talking about. You are not confused. You are not shocked, which tells me everything I need to know. She said I did it because I love my son. Just like that. No build-up, no defense, no attempt to deny it. Just, I did it because I love my son. Nate stood up. He stood up so fast, the chair scraped back, and he walked to the window and stood there with his back to us and his hands on the sill, and I could see from where I was sitting that his shoulders were shaking. I kept my eyes on Diane. I said you went into my home without my knowledge. You went into my bathroom. You took my medication, and you replaced it with vitamins because you decided that what you wanted was more important than what I had chosen for my own body. She said, I just wanted. I said, I know what you wanted. She said a baby would have. I said, Diane, stop. She stopped. I said you do not get to finish that sentence. You do not get to tell me what a baby would have done for my marriage, or my life, or your relationship with your son, because you made a decision about my body without my consent. And there is no sentence that finishes with a justification for that. There is no ending to that sentence that makes it okay. Silence. Nate turned around from the window. His face was something I had never seen on him before. Not anger exactly. Something past anger. Something that had burned through anger and come out the other side into something quieter and more devastating. He said, Mum, give me the key. She said, Nathan. He said the key. Right now. She got up. She went to the kitchen. She came back with the key and she held it out to him, and her hand was shaking, and she said, I only ever wanted what was best for you. He took the key. He said, I know you believe that. He put it in his pocket. He said, but what is best for me is standing right there. And what you did to her, you did to me too. You understand that? Diane started to cry. Nate looked at her for a long moment. Then he said, we need to go. He looked at me. I stood up. I picked up my phone from the coffee table. I did not say goodbye. I walked to the door. And I did not look back at Diane Kowalski sitting on her couch crying in her bathrobe, because looking back was not something I was willing to do in that moment. Not for her. Not then. Maybe not ever. I want to tell you where I am now. Not the clean version. Not the version where everything resolves neatly and everyone learns their lesson and life goes back to feeling simple. The real version, because you stayed this long and you deserve the real one. Nate and I are still together. I want to say that first, because it matters, and because the answer surprised even me when I finally knew it. The week after the confrontation was the hardest week of my marriage. We barely slept. We talked for hours at a time, and then did not talk for hours at a time, and both felt necessary. We cried, both of us. More than once. In the same room, and separately, and once at 2 a.m, sitting on the kitchen floor eating cereal, because neither of us could sleep, and the kitchen floor felt like the right place to be. In our third or fourth long conversation, Nate said something that I have thought about nearly every day since. He said, I know you didn't do anything wrong. I know this was done to you, but I need to ask you, and I need you to be honest. Do you blame me for any of it? I thought about it for a long time before I answered. I said I blame you for the key, for not taking it back when I asked, for making me feel like asking for it back was an unreasonable thing to ask. He said yes. I said, and I blame you, for the years of picking your mother's comfort over my concerns. Every time I said something, felt off, and you told me I was reading too much into it. He said yes. I said, but do I blame you for what she did? I thought about that separately. I said no, I don't. He exhaled. I said, but Nate, things have to change. Not some things. Everything. The way we handle her. The way you handle her. The way you choose between us. When it comes to it. Because if things go back to the way they were before, I cannot stay in this. He said they won't. I promise you they won't. I said I need more than a promise. I need to see it. He said then watch me. We started couples therapy 2 weeks after the confrontation. Our therapist's name is Dr. Amara, and she has the specific gift of asking one question that dismantles 15 minutes of careful positioning. In our second session, she asked Nate, before all of this, if Megan had told you she believed your mother had done something harmful, would you have believed her? He was quiet for a long time. Then he said probably not immediately. Probably not without evidence. Dr. Amara said, "And what does that tell you?" He said that I made my wife live in a situation where she knew she would not be believed. And so she stopped saying things. Dr. Amara looked at me. I said yes. That is exactly what happened. That session was hard, but it was real. And real hard is better than comfortable and dishonest every single time. We consulted a lawyer 10 days after everything came out. I want to be honest about this part because people ask me about it constantly. Our lawyer told us that what Diane had done had potential criminal implications depending on jurisdiction, tampering with medication, violation of bodily autonomy. She laid out our options carefully and without pressure. We chose not to press charges. That was my decision, made by me, after 2 weeks of thinking about nothing else. Not because what Diane did was not serious enough. It was. It was deeply and permanently serious, and I will never say otherwise. But because I did my own calculation, the cost of a legal process, my time, my energy, my pregnancy, my marriage, my own healing versus what pressing charges would actually give me. And what I decided was that what I needed was not a courtroom. What I needed was control. My control over my own life, over my own decisions, over what happened next, and when and how. So I chose differently. I wrote Diane a letter instead. Not an email, a letter. Handwritten, 4 pages, every single thing she had taken from me. The mornings I had made decisions about my career, and my body believing I had control over my own timeline. The conversations Nate and I had about our future, based on a reality she had secretly altered. The specific violation of knowing that someone had been in my bathroom, touching my medication with a plan in mind. I wrote it all down. I sent it. I did not ask for a response. I did not want one. I just needed her to hold the full weight of it without anyone softening it for her. Diane has not been in our home since that night. The locks were changed the morning after the confrontation. New keys cut for 2 people. Me and Nate. Nobody else. Not now. Not ever again. Without a conversation I am part of, and consent I have given. Nate sees his mother occasionally, on his own time, at her house or in public places, never at ours. I do not tell him not to see her. That is his relationship and his grief to navigate. Watching your mother do something like this, understanding for the first time the full shape of who someone is, that is its own particular loss. And I was not going to make it worse by issuing ultimatums about a relationship. That was his to figure out. What I asked for clearly, and once, was that he see her clearly, not through the lens of a son who needed to protect her feelings, through the lens of a man who had watched what she did to his wife, and was not going to pretend it was smaller than it was. He has done that. I watch him do it every time it comes up. It is not nothing. I am 6 months pregnant now. I want to tell you how I feel about that, because I think it matters. I love this baby. I love her with a completeness that I did not anticipate and cannot fully explain, because she came into existence through the worst violation of my life, and she is also the most real and most wanted thing I have ever been part of. Both of those things are true at the same time. She did not ask to come into the world the way she did. She is just herself, this specific new person who did not exist and now does, and she is mine. Mine and Nate's, not Diane's. That was the thing Diane did not calculate when she made her decision. She thought she was giving herself a grandchild. What she actually did was make sure she would never be trusted with one. Because there is a difference between being in a child's life because you are loved and welcomed, and being in a child's life because someone decides to allow it, with both eyes open and a very short leash. Diane is not in our daughter's life yet. Whether she ever is, fully, really, with any kind of genuine access is a decision I have not made yet, and the making of it will happen on my timeline. My timeline, the one she tried to take from me. The one I took back. The last thing I want to say, I think about the mugs sometimes. The mugs she moved to the cabinet above the coffee machine because she decided they were more logical there. Such a small thing. The smallest thing. But it was the same impulse. The same fundamental belief that she knew better. That her vision of how things should be organized was more important than the way the people who actually lived there had chosen to organize them. Mugs to birth control. Same belief. Different scale. Different consequences. I think about that a lot. About how the small things are never just the small things. About how the small things are always the first draft of the big ones. If someone in your life is moving your mugs without asking, pay attention. Not because everyone who moves your mugs is going to do what Diane did, but because someone who believes they know better than you about where your mugs should go, believes they know better than you about everything. And that belief, left unchecked, left without consequence, left to grow for years, inside a house that gave it a key, becomes something that looks nothing like love, even when the person holding it swears that is exactly what it is. That is what I know now. That is what I am taking with me. Eyes open, locks changed, and my daughter, my specific, real, not Diane's daughter, on her way. If you made it to the very end of Megan's story, thank you. This one was heavy and real, and you stayed anyway. If any part of it hit you, drop a comment below, and tell me which moment got you the most. Was it the dinner, where Diane slipped up? Was it the lab results? Was it Nate at the window? Or was it the mugs? Tell me. I read every single comment, and I want to know. If this story moved, you share it right now. Send it to someone who needs to hear it today. Because somewhere right now, there is a woman whose mugs have been moved, and she is telling herself, it is not worth the conversation. I want her to hear Megan's story. Like this video if you stayed until the last word. And subscribe because I have more stories coming that are going to stop you completely in your tracks. I will see you then.